Okay, so it is now my great pleasure and an honor to introduce our chief guest for today, who will be giving a keynote address today. Mr. Jnaneshwar Mure, I met him at the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas that was organized by India's Ministry of External Affairs in June this year, focusing on artificial intelligence. Mr. Mure is secretary to the Ministry of External Affairs and Indian Overseas Affairs. But what I found also very interesting, in addition to all his accomplishments in the Ministry of External Affairs, is that he's a very celebrated author. I understand in Marathi, but also in Hindi and maybe other languages. And in addition, he has launched educational projects in his native town. And so it's really a great honor to have him here today. And I look forward to your remarks. Thank you so much.
So, great pleasure meeting you. I've just arrived from the airport and sorry to be a little late. Disclaimers first, I'm not an expert in AI, so my position is quite safe. I'm also not a representative today of any government agency. That's why my intelligence today is going to be really artificial. I'm not holding any key. Some notes, yes, but really I don't claim to be a keynote speaker. My interest would be really, I'm a student. I'm quite amazed, and I'm no scientific background, no IT background. Otherwise, I would have used something very high tech. But I have a deep interest in this because anything that is game-changing interests me. Anything that can really I'm from a village. My father was a farmer. I joined the Foreign Service perhaps by fluke, by chance. But my interest has always been, why am I in the Foreign Service type of a question. And therefore, I always try to see whether I can connect diplomacy to people. That's my focus. Because diplomacy is not Minister of External Affairs in my view. Diplomacy is not South Bloc, North Bloc. Diplomacy is people of a country. So just like that, AI or no AI, it has to be ultimately for people and for the humanity. So that is the basic concern. And being a student, I read a little bit, and therefore I feel that this is some game-changing thing that is on the horizon. And therefore we organized this conference in MEA, where we had experts coming from all over the world. And we had some interesting discussions. So that's where I start. I'm not a skeptic. I'm not, suspicious of what it will do to humanity. Though in the past, any major game-changing technology or effort has always been seen with suspicion. Every now and then we see a pattern emerge within technology and society at large, that there comes along a new understanding that man has of science, a new ability to manipulate the tools in his environment to his benefit, to craft the world around him in a new dimension and a new possibility that didn't exist before, and such movements. What I call pivot points change everything. They accelerate the evolution of society, accelerate our culture, help us overcome old problems, and create new opportunities. There is a paradigm shift that these pivot points have on society that becomes undeniable. They alter the course of history forever. You know some of the pivot points in history. For example, we learn to walk. Man discovers fire. Innovation of the wheel. We learn to farm. We learn to build. We build the first pulley systems. We build the railroads. Two men realize you can sit in a tin can with wings and it will fly. The invention of nuclear power, the invention of transistors and silicon chips, the first telephonic conversation, the invention of the first computer, the invention of the mobile phone, the invention of smartphone, Facebook, and now man marveling at its potential to be at the cusp of creating something in its reflection, yet other than itself, an intelligence, that is artificial intelligence. Unlike what Hollywood or fantasy novels would sell you, the doomsday scenario of AI taking over, I'm here to rather paint a much different grounded view. In AI, I see liberation. I'm not though I'm not quite 100% sure. While coming here, I also had this thought of this great book by Francis Fukuyama called The Post-Human Society. This I read sometime in 2013. And Fukuyama has a very interesting view of the world, some of you might be knowing. He says that we are perhaps on the cusp of being a new species. Humanity, Post-Human Society is the name of this particular book. The developments in biotechnology, genetic engineering, robotics, precision engineering, IT, all this is changing humanity to such an extent that we are perhaps likely to become a different species altogether. That's his conclusion, if I remember correctly, and therefore we need to have a larger mechanism to bring some kind of a basic regulatory framework for this. That's the, just as we have for nuclear weapons, we have for weapons of mass destruction, some kind of an international conversation which creates, I particularly believe in the fact that it's good to be a humanity rather than being something else, because it's a great responsibility now to remain a human. And in that journey, I'm actually not sure as to how AI will play out its role. Will it help us in achieving a new station in the evolutionary process, or will it change us completely? I think that AI is not specifically mentioned by Francis Fukuyama, if I remember correctly. I had not heard this word, maybe 2 years back, I had not heard this word myself. So that being the case, perhaps what he says is now actually, we are perhaps facing that movement. So it's very interesting and very fascinating and very challenging moment for all of us. You might wonder why I bring up this point. It is because AI too is a revolutionary technology, one that shines a mirror right in our face, and for it to truly to be adopted, we must ensure it permeates our culture in a way that touches the lives of billions. Particularly billions is a word which is very suitable for India, because once I was asked, being a diplomat, how would you describe India? And actually, while one has thought a lot about one's own country, it often becomes difficult to encapsulate it in one sentence or few words. So I said India is 1.3 billion stories. And when I look back, I always think that's a very fairly intelligent answer, because if you see the diversity, language, culture, folk songs, people, costumes, heritage, it's a absolutely fascinating playground for people in AI, because AI has to deal with very complex things, including, I think, intuitions, and how do we really come. India that way is a very fertile ground for this particular purpose. Let me clear, I'm not here to be prophetic or simply talk in abstract terms as if I'm pitching you a new idea. I guess you have already bought it to the idea, which is why we are here. I'm here to get specific about how AI can affect daily life and what can be done to ensure the proliferation of this great technology so it can truly rise to its best potential. Knowledge is best utilized if it becomes a part of daily life. That is the true movement of pivot point for any technology, where it goes from being exclusive to becoming all-inclusive. Facebook, an extremely exclusive community at first meant only for Harvard grads, truly took off and saw its rise when the mithaiwala down the street could also be on the same platform. And trust me, he knows how to use Facebook just as well as anybody else in this room. We as humans tend to be blind to see well as anybody else. We as humans tend to be blinded to see there resides in everybody a spark of brilliance, whatever you can name it, social brilliance or maybe singing brilliance or talent. And that brilliance comes in varied form. For some it is in writing, a great deal Some it is creating algorithms, for some it is building a company, for some it's PhD from IIT or USC, and for some it is knowing how to run the best mithai shop in the entire Chandni Chowk. And yet all of us are brilliant and intelligent in our own ways. If we are supposed to truly think of benefit of AI to the society, we have to first internally accept everyone is brilliant, just because Lalaji from Chandni Chowk, who owns the best mithai shop in Delhi, never learnt how to write his first line of code and print hello world on C++ doesn't mean that he lacks the intelligence to make AI a daily part of his life. Our friend simply speaks a different language. This transaction between the scientist and Lalaji breaks down if the scientist puts the onus on Lalaji to figure out how to use AI, or to know the difference between convolutional neural net and artificial neural net. It's sort of like Lalaji asking a programmer whether to fry the badam first or the kishmish for the halwa to retain the slightly charred but not burnt flavor. We just want the halwa and we want it to taste good. When good technology doesn't get adopted, it's a communication breakdown between the scientists and the masses. I believe that anything that we are doing at this particular stage in our evolution has to be useful to the masses, which really represent nothing but the humanity at its core. This happens because many a times futuristic technology, they tend to become egalitarian, reserved only for the elite few. So even if something may have a great impact, the masses learn to shy away from such tools, self-subscribing to the impression that a certain tool or technology may be outside their comprehension, or that it's something meant to be in a research lab. And often it is the very creators who end up isolating their own creations, and they become subject of elite praising only, and with that technologies which could have had a wonderful impact end up dying a slow, painful death versus mass adoption. I remember that Akio Morita in his Made in Japan also had made some very interesting points about how a video cassette recorder of a particular size survived and how it did not, because they thought that they wanted to have an exclusive product, while everybody else in the world had adopted a particular standard and producing mass creations. So I'm here to give you a context of how AI can go on to become a part of daily life of Indians, and hopefully give some perspective on why it is extremely critical for AI to proliferate down to the very grassroots levels of the society outside of standard corporate environment as well. It is my hope as we start digging deeper that the ideas and viewpoints I put forth help inspire the audience members to truly think outside the box. For AI proliferation to happen at the highest level, we must design AI tools such that one is able to use them without requiring any prerequisite tools or knowledge or even skills. Let me give you an example. There was a time designing a website was something you hired a coder for. It was a luxury afforded only to the few lucky ones who were either affluent enough to have a website or were literate enough to navigate the world of CSS, HTML, or Dreamweaver. There was a certain set of knowledge one required before one could have their own website. This changed, however, with the advent of Wix, Squarespace, WordPress. Without having any knowledge of HTML, you could drag and drop elements onto a canvas and build out a website, built out store. A common entrepreneur with no special computer skills could get an online store up and running in minutes, all because tools like Wix and Squarespace made creating a website easy and fun. A website in today's day and age isn't about a website, it's about having an identity. The onus is on all the stalwarts of AI present here in this audience to truly think, how can we highly functional drag and drop tools with such easy user interface that it could allow someone with zero coding skills to deploy AI-based apps. Sure, machine learning and APT exist, but I challenge and implore you to go further. I am envisioning a platform where a child could learn how to make an AI driven application even before he writes code. Simply by using drag and drop tools on a canvas, what we are doing here is taking the fear out of AI, making it accessible. For proliferation to happen, any of the scary aspects of AI need to be eliminated. We have to make AI a natural part of our lives. We have to make it fun and relatable. I'd like to propose an extremely practical use case for AI that is sure to hit every Indian heart. Shortly after, I'll follow with some use cases within the healthcare sector. A recent friend of mine, Seema Aunty, you all know Seema Aunty, went through the experience of hosting a shadi, and ever since then I have wondered, how about an AI driven app for managing the shadi, bringing together all the vendors, the flower guy, the caterer, the tent guy, the transportation company, the wedding decorator, the baker, the bandwala, the DJ, the lighting guy. Do you know how many variables one has to manage? You are consistently taking calls, you have multiple points of contacts. One is texting, the other is calling someone. Typical confusion of chaos and confusion of Indian marriage. Prefers email, the other prefers WhatsApp. You end up explaining the same thing over and over again 10 times in 10 minutes. What if I could manage all these relationships from one single app, understand the bottlenecks, see if everything is running on schedule? I could even have my invite list on the same app along with the card printers. I could have people RSVP through the app, and the AI could predict based on traffic conditions what the flow of guests is going to be, what the dietary preferences of our guests are, what the most appropriate frequency to roll out the appetizers during the wedding to make sure they don't dry up. Truly, this can be broken down into an algorithm. The USC folks out here are going to enjoy this. You can even take into account air humidity and moisture to understand the effect of sponginess of the dokla and the frequency at which they need to be rolled out to make sure the Q factor of our dokla is of the highest caliber possible based on real-time guest flow. I could also understand if the ladkewala invited more guests than us, that is ladkewalas, by running a cross-comparison report of the RSVP origination. The data doesn't lie. Who thought Seema Aunty knew taunt to her, auntie's new taunt to her would-be son-in-law would be, the data doesn't lie. This is such a simple yet practical use of data science. This is hardcore data science on the back end, but it would be a dream come true for anyone who has managed a wedding in the house. You would be alerted of delays, bottlenecks from any vendor, along with having a complete vendor and marketplace for best rates for shadi vendors in your area. You could even arrange a pandit or a priest if one needs to. We could even have backup vendors ready in place in case someone was going to fall through. I am sure we could even have a backup groom, but that may be a use case we omit out of this. India is a land of weddings, so let's get people married more efficiently. I think particularly in the IT sector, it's not very efficient, I feel. Or it can't run very efficiently. I'm sure you are wondering if this is the best use of your expensive computer science degree. But the reason why I chose to go with such an example is because it does something wonderful. It makes AI less scary. Packaging is very important. The above use case packages concepts within AI such as process improvement, process management, efficiency response, risk mitigation, predictive analysis, and data analysis into a very non-scary, non-version of virtual shadi manager. Ultimately, AI is not about Peter Norvigs of the world or the very respectable Harry Shum, I don't know how to pronounce. Our Indian languages actually are far more phonetic and therefore far more scientific when you relate them with how it is written and how it is pronounced. That can also, I'm told, help in the IT. It's about humanity as a whole. It's about enriching one's life in a way. That's why I can't write my name correctly in any standard scripts that are available, because It's Dnyaneshwar. Nobody can pronounce it correctly, even in India, outside Maharashtra. Forget about them doing it overseas. It's about humanity as a whole. It's about enriching one's life in a way that it isn't pretentious but truthful to the stories of billions of people. For Seema Auntie, for that brief moment in time, the Shadi becomes her universe. And if AI can succeed in making that small little universe a brighter place where things just fall into order, we are then succeeding. To give another analogy, smartphones. All of us present here know how to use them, and all we require to do so is room temperature IQ. The fact that I don't have a complete understanding of the components inside the actual iPhone does not act as a barrier to my utilization of the iPhone. I can use it just as well as anybody else. A similar paradigm has to emerge within AI for mass adoption. Moving on, and to change the mood, I would like to get into the healthcare sector. I believe some people here are actually in the healthcare sector. India is uniquely positioned at the current moment for healthcare overall. We also stand to produce a tremendous amount of data that can contribute towards research and, may I say, real-time behavioral data for correlation between different ailments and lifestyle choices. The HIPAA healthcare laws of US, designed with the best intention in mind of securing the privacy of the patient, have made electronic medical record (MER) industry in US a fragmented and disparate system that is slow to innovate. So we must go beyond the traditional model. India hasn't still adopted the concept of EMR, but in many ways this fresh start, or rather blank canvas, is a chance to learn from the mistakes and successes of others before us and truly innovate. I would like to propose a two-way EMR system where the patient and doctor both have the ability to input data. Let's take a moment to think. Majority of EMRs right now don't have the ability to have a two-way conversation platform between the patient and the doctor. Let's say you had a patient come in for cancer treatment. As he starts his treatment, he is given a standardized app that he downloads, which is tied up with his EMR number, much like an Aadhaar number, and he's put on the cancer regimen. But as a part of his healthcare treatment, he's also required to voluntarily log his quality of sleep, his daily activities, his daily diet. This one's for the data. Scientists in the room whose wheels are already turning, now this data is being collected through a mobile app on the phone, and every time the patient goes for his chemo treatment, the doctor is able to generate analysis in real time to see what are the correlation between lifestyle choices and prevalence of certain types of cancer. This information is currently not possible in real time as a two-way EMR logging system, which allows the patient to log their lifestyle habits and give doctors real-time access into patient's life, is something that hasn't been deployed. Doctors can see what is the correlation between diet and certain type of cancer. Are certain types of cancers more prevalent in certain zip codes? Are we seeing an increase and outbreak of a certain subtype of cancer coming from certain geographical region with certain lifestyle choices? I call this an active EMR, where the patient actively takes part in logging their daily habits, their calorie count, their activities of the day, quality of sleep. Imagine the leap healthcare can make when this data is cross-collated in real time. We are cutting through all the red tape of gathering such data. You have an active population of 1 billion plus participating in a lifetime study that evolves and collects data that goes well beyond just the confines of a laboratory. Drones have become a controversial topic. One's mind automatically resorts to drone strikes and drones as a musing of man's latest invention in making a new efficient killing machine. On the contrary, though, I'd like to shine some light on some use cases that have major impact on healthcare. Imagine a rural area where a mother requires a life-saving medicine in the middle of the night. Cue in drone delivery. This is not futuristic or experimental. The scientists in the audience are aware that, barring certain exceptions, machine vision algorithms and drone technology are already mature enough to perform this feat. Similarly, given urban traffic, an ambulance is on the way to see a patient who's called in for life-threatening allergic reaction. The ambulance gets stuck in traffic, making it impossible to reach the patient in time. However, utilizing the Utilizing drone delivery, a maid pack with an EpiPen and a video tablet is dispatched. The drone arrives at the scene while the ambulance is still trying to make its way through the traffic. The medic in the ambulance is video conferencing the family of the patient, walking them through the steps of administering the EpiPen, saving the life of the patient. In a scenario where few seconds would have mattered, drones and AI can be the difference between life and death. We all fight our own battles, and sometimes technology can be a comforting tool to remind us we are not alone. I would like to propose in the application of AI and helping addicts quit substance abuse. How about an AI-driven app to help you quit smoking, gambling, drinking? Imagine having an app that helps you quit drinking every time. I think it will be very useful in Bangalore. Every time you are going out with your friends, you alert the app. You will be out with your friends. The app could also use location data to see if you have stopped by a bar and how long you are there at bar. It could keep sending you push notifications reminding you to not give in to peer pressure and the promises you have made to yourself. Call it a timed intervention. If you keep ignoring the push notifications, not even checking them, it could even generate an automatic call with a pre-recorded voice message from your friends reminding you why you want to quit. It could even alert your closest friends to call you for support and remind you to stay strong. All of us struggle against some kind of demon or the other, and all we need to be reminded at the right times is we are not alone in that struggle. Safety is primary concern of our public transportation. In fact, Bangalore transportation can do a lot with the use of application of Pune also. Wherever tech people are there, the traffic seems to be getting from bad to worse. So I think you need to come forward to find out some complex solutions to these issues. And AI perhaps can be of great use there. Safety is primary concern of our public transportation, utilizing pose estimation, facial recognition and machine vision. We could monitor our buses, especially with the algorithmic sensitivity turned on to high during the night, and upon detecting suspicious behavior, the nearest police station could be live streamed the visuals from the inside of the bus CCTV to assess whether a threat is real or not. We can save lives, we can keep our women, children and men safer. I know there will be a time where we will predict epidemics before they happen and save millions of lives. I know there will be a time when our city planning would leap by generations, utilizing behavior patterns and congestion patterns. I envision a day where a child in a rural area will be able to remotely program a drone and use it for smart farming. Because agriculture has a huge opportunity. Agriculture is a huge opportunity for AI believers, and being a very complex country as it is, you have agriculture, strange agricultural patterns, weather patterns, marketing channels, available, not available, off season, on season, drought years, no drought years. We can really take this forward in a huge way in agriculture is concerned. Whether that time happens today or 10 years from now is dependent on our willingness to understand as innovators that we must make AI accessible, fun and easy. The applications of AI for benefit of social good are endless, but the bottom line stays. It must proliferate to the very grassroots levels of society. We must learn to speak the language of the common man and truly make them see AI as a friend, not a foe. That's my more or less thoughts on the topic. I'm not sure whether it makes any sense. As I said, I'm a student and very soon I'm going to retire. And AI is one of my focus areas, particularly AI education. So that's why, my interest in this topic. I think before we embark on a huge journey, we also need some good awareness in society, and that kind of education, short-term, medium-term, long-term courses is, I think, need of the time. And that's where perhaps I might be focusing some of my energies. So Milind, thank you so much for inviting me, and all of you, thank you so much for being so patient. I'm not a doctor. I can't give remedy to all the patients. But let's work in this endeavor together. And if I could be of any assistance in your journey, I'll be there to help, assist, support, and work together with you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.